Iran sits on the world's second largest reserves of natural gas and is fourth when it comes to oil. But much of that potential has been dormant given Iran's ongoing tensions with the U.S. and bitter rivalries with many of its neighbors. That could be about to change as Iran gears up to strike energy cooperation deals with bordering countries and as far as Latin America. Iranian President Ebrahim Raisi visited Venezuela on the first leg of his three-nation tour that also include Cuba and Nicaragua. The two countries signed numerous energy deals that covered overhauling refining capabilities of natural gas to boosting oil production. Iran and Venezuela, both currently under heavy U.S. sanctions, have also stepped up cooperation with U.S. adversaries China and Russia. Earlier this month, Iran's oil minister said Tehran was planning to create a gas hub in the country's south, together with other natural gas giants, Russia, Qatar and Turkmenistan. But could Iran join already existing energy networks in the region, including the TANAP pipeline that runs through Turkiye? And to further discuss the potential of Iran's natural gas hub project, joining me now from Moscow is Sergei Kapitonov. He's an analyst at the Center for ESG and Energy Transition at Skoltech. And from London, Jonathan David Lamb. He is an oil and gas analyst at Wood & Company. Gentlemen, welcome to Straight Talk. It's good to have you on the program. Sergei, what do you make of the regional efforts to turn Iran into an energy hub? And who is leading this push and who stands to gain the most, obviously, besides Iran?
First of all, it's the whole concept of the Iranian gas hub is pretty novel because before we've heard a lot about establishing a gas hub in Turkey, and much work have already been done in terms of the project of the gas hub in Turkey. But this spring, Iranians, I would say, shocked the international gas industry by saying that they would establish their own gas hub. And of course, it is Iran to gain the most from this concept, because having the second largest gas reserves in the world, Iran is landlocked. I mean, in terms of the access to export capacities. Mm-hmm. Iran exports gas only to Turkey, to Armenia, Azerbaijan, and to Turkmenistan, but it doesn't have access to the world markets.
Yes.
So if established, Iran will get a lot from this gas hub. It will control the flows, it will get transit revenues, it will have access to foreign markets.
So, Jonathan, what's at stake for Russia, Turkmenistan and Qatar turning Iran into an energy hub? I mean, what are the shared interests of these three countries?
If we start off with Qatar, it's a little difficult to understand what Qatar gets from such a project, because they already have their own massive LNG infrastructure. They're building more with the big expansion project that's underway. Turkmenistan and Russia is a little different because both of those countries relied very much on selling gas to Europe, which obviously has hit rather a large snag in the last year. And if they can have another outlet for their gas through Iran, that would obviously help mitigate the loss of sales that they've experienced in the European market.
So, Sergei, it has been long argued that Russia has never been a staunch supporter of Iran's economic development due to both countries' diverging interests. Has that changed with Russia's attack on Ukraine?
I would say that the whole situation in the regional gas industry has changed, with Russia having lost almost all access to the European markets, and thus Russia needs new partners and new markets to somehow cooperate in exporting gas to the new markets. And Iran, for this sake, can play a great role. But before, you're absolutely right, Iran was often perceived as a competitor to Russia, and Russia didn't facilitate much for Iran to help Iranian gas flow to Western markets.
So, So, Jonathan, is this a viable cooperation project? I mean, what kind of political and economic challenges will Iran likely to face, or what are the potential impediments before turning Iran into an important energy hub?
Well, I think there's two main problems. One is infrastructure and the other is politics. Mm-hmm. Iran has so far failed to build the LNG terminals that that Qatar has on the other side of the Gulf that actually exploit the same natural gas field under the waters of the Gulf. And so without either pipelines going to major consumers or LNG terminals, it's difficult to see where all this gas is going to go to. And then obviously the political issues around sanctions against Iran has made it's one of the reasons why they haven't been able to build the necessary infrastructure. And obviously there would be consumers that would be unwilling to buy from Iran or wary of buying from Iran because of sanctions.
So, Sergei, could such energy cooperation, which includes Turkmenistan, help Iran to resolve its disputes with 4 littoral states over the status of Caspian Sea?
Well, an absolutely well-timed question. I would say that the dispute over the Caspian Sea has little to do with the concept of the gas hub, because the gas hub has a more geopolitical meaning, as I see it. But of course, cooperation within this new union may help solve some regional disputes like the Caspian Sea dispute, of course. But as I see it, it has more of the geopolitical meaning. I mean, this big new gas union.
So, Jonathan, when materialized, how would such a cooperation change the power balance in the Gulf, and how important it is for Iran to normalize its ties with Saudi Arabia as well as other Gulf countries in order to establish this ambitious project to become an energy hub?
Yes, I think normalizing relations with Saudi Arabia would be one of the most important steps here, because obviously the problems between the two countries have got in the way of lots of developments in the past, and Saudi Arabia could do quite a lot to try and hinder developments within Iran if relationships are not normalized. So I do think that's a very important prerequisite.
So, but how do you think Western nations will react to such a cooperation? I mean, can we say there is a new anti-US front forming, spanning from the Middle East to Asia and even Latin America?
Well, yes. There is obviously interest in countries that don't have good relations with the US in forming an alliance. There's also the other side of this, I think, which is that given the loss of gas from Russia, it's in the interests of the US to try and find ways of normalizing relationships with other countries in order to supply the gas that the global economy needs. So Iran might actually have a more willing ear in the US to enable it to do things that maybe a year or two ago couldn't have been done.
So, Sergei, we know Iranian President Raisi is on a 5-day trip to 3 Latin American countries, Venezuela, Nicaragua, and Cuba. And with Venezuela, they're forging new energy deals over cover production and refining. So what are the shared interests of Iran with these 3 Latin American countries, despite their geographical distance?
Thank you. It's a very good question, but I would say it's nothing new in the global oil industry. And Russia, before Iran, Rosneft has established very strong ties with Venezuela and also with other Latin American countries, using different oil swaps, using refining capacities and selling, for example, Venezuelan oil through its subsidiaries. I think that Iran has followed the same road because, well, Iran needs access to foreign markets to make its oil flow to different markets, and establishing ties with Latin American countries which have strong economies, which have big expertise in petrochemicals. I think it's quite a way for Iran.
So, Jonathan, Iran says it is also ready to sign a long-term comprehensive agreement with Brazil to boost bilateral trade volume. How do you think it is going to play out?
Well, that's an interesting development because the Brazilian government has been kind of vocally anti-American and in favor of trade that's not in dollars. So I guess adding Iran to the mix increases the number of countries that might trade with each other in currencies other than dollar, which to some extent strengthens that partnership.
So Jonathan says, Sergey, it's an interesting partnership. Can we say both countries are kind of laying the groundwork for Iran's prospective membership into the BRICS grouping? I mean, are all members, let's say, on board with this possibility?
Well, I do think that it's quite possible for Iran to join BRICS. But before we're talking about Iran joining BRICS, we can talk about this new big gas bloc that can form out of 4 countries of Russia, Turkmenistan, Iran, and possibly Qatar. Before, there were several attempts to transform gas exporting countries forum into this a kind of OPEC organization, but these attempts failed, and now the Gas Exporting Countries Forum is more a scientific and research organization and a platform for discussions. But this new attempt of a gas hub, establishing a gas hub in Iran, may bring a lot of results for these countries. I mean, in terms of they do control 57% of global gas reserves. So we are talking about a serious partnership.
So going back to the region, let's say, Jonathan, Turkey has also been saying that it is ready to become a member of the BRICS. So if Iran is able to create a national network to move gas from the Gulf towards the south, could Turkey play a role in this regional hub plan? And could this also open a way maybe to Turkey's membership to the BRICS in the future, of course?
Well, if we start with the gas hub, obviously Turkey has a number of different suppliers of gas, and now we have the Black Sea gas being produced domestically. And if we connect the Iranian hub to the hub in Turkey, then you have an extra source of supply, and maybe some of that comes from Turkmenistan and from Russia as well. It strengthens the role that Turkey can play in the southern supply into the European markets. And, Turkey and Iran have had difficult relationships over the years. So a normalization of relationships between these two countries, it definitely could open the door to more cooperation in a range of ways, including maybe BRICS. I don't know if that's an aim of the government at the moment.
All right, gentlemen, unfortunately, we'll have to leave it here. Thank you very much for joining me on Straight Talk.